Good morning. Um, okay, this is session number 2 of several sessions reading the book The Rope in the Jungle. Um, and we should start off with a joke. And today's joke is why can't your nose be 12 inches long? Well, if your nose was 12 inches long, it would then be a foot. Okay, is that enough time to laugh? All right. Also, we'll have Grammy is cleaning closets. Of course, Grammy is cleaning closets. She cleans closets in the best of times, but now that we're stuck in the house, she's cleaning the closets that she's cleaned again, just to get them cleaner. And she's finding all this stuff that you kids made when you were little. And she uncovered a note. And the note reads, "Dear Tooth Fairy, my mom forgot to pack my tooth that fell out." Good old blame it on the mom note. But it really did fall out. And if you don't think that it fell out, here's what it looked like. And then Elizabeth drew this picture of an old rotted tooth on the bottom of the note. And then she stuck this under her pillow, expecting that the tooth fairy would come and give her some money. Well, I don't know what the end of this note was, but it did get into Grammy's Keep Forever stuff. Tomorrow, or the next time I do this, I hope to do this every day, but tomorrow I have something from Jenna. And if Jenna's not watching this, maybe somebody better tell Jenna, because she's going to be featured in the beginning tomorrow. Okay, we're reading Rope in the Jungle by Gary Jennings, and in this classy, highly technical, done with perfection reading by Grandpa. And yesterday, or the last time we read, we were getting on to an old tramp trawler steamboat, going down to the jungles of Chiapas to repair a rope that broke. The rope was 16,000 pounds and 22 miles long. That's quite a rope. And so only one person in the world can repair this rope. And we met one of the main characters in the last reading. His name was Trey Clark, a very young guy who's in school, who's from Mexico, but from the northern part of Mexico and not the southern part of Mexico. So we're going to travel down to Chiapas and on this old steamer. And today we meet the second guy, the guy that's going to fix the rope. Now, this is a very special guy. Only one person in the whole world can tie this rope together, and he's the one that can do it. So, here we go in this very polished reading of The Rope in the Jungle. The Derby gentleman hastily dodged the massive steam tractor that was being lowered over him. He spotted the youngsters leaning dejectedly against the wall, the bulwarks, further down the deck, and dragged his luggage to where the boy stood. The man was barely taller than the boy, but much rounder. Panting, he lifted his hat, revealing a tangled mop of white hair, just like mine, a tangled mop of white hair. and swabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. Ooh, let me swab my forehead. Okay, handkerchief, swabbing forehead. Okay, that's what he does. He swabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. When he had got his breath, the captain appears to be busy. Perhaps you could assist me. The boy lost his glum expression and grinned. That's not the captain, sir. That's the boatswain. You'll know the captain, Hootsman, when you see him. Right now, I believe he's drunk in his cabin. Dear me, a weakness common among mariners, I understand. Well, I booked passage on this vessel at the last minute, and I just wanted to inquire where I am to be quartered. I thought I was the only passenger on this rust bucket, said the boy. I guess you'll be quartered with me. I'm in the steward's cabin because an old tramp like this does not carry a steward, and there are 2 bunks in there. It'll be good to have company, sir. I agree, lad. If all the crew are as surly as the one I just encountered, if you'll show me which cabin, I'll stow my gear. I suppose you might as well. They almost finished loading, and they ought to be untying the dock ropes any minute. You mean cutting off the hawsers, said the elderly gentleman, hefting a suitcase. There are many varieties of rope, as there are breeds of dogs, and each has its own nomenclature. The boy gave him a sidelong glance, but said nothing. He picked up the man's other bag, the leather satchel, finding it unexpectedly heavy, and led the way aft along the deck. They dodged among the still working sailors, some of whom were already battening down the cover on number 1 hatch, and made their way to the island amidships. Thence, along halfway, lined with 3 doors on either side, the boy opened one. The cabin could hardly be called a stateroom. It was bleak and inhospitable. It contained 2 bunks, one above the other, a chamber pot under the lower one, a sea chest, a table and chair, an oil lamp dangling in the gimbals to keep it hanging straight no matter how the ship might roll, a washstand, and 1 porthole. In a corner was stacked the boy's luggage of leather trunks and suitcases. The little room was intolerably hot, stuffy, and noisy. We're right over the engine room, the boy apologized. Across the hall is the kitchen, and across that, the gangway, is the galley. The gentleman corrected him. And forward of us is the engine room, casing. And forward of that will be the chart room. And above that, the bridge and the wheelhouse, and I sort of get the impression, sir, said the boy, interrupting him, that you hadn't been to sea before. Aye, true enough. I am a right hang ashore, the pudgy man agreed cheerfully, but in my business I have to know every inch of the type of ship that's built. This Godspeed is a single screw, single funnel freighter of 2,500 tons. Not a very graceful design. Her bows are so blunt, as they say, her belly begins there. Powered by Kirk's engine, that'll give her 10.5 knots, weather permitting. I say, my boy, would you object if I took the lower bunk? You may have perceived that my physique is, somewhat rotund for climbing. Of course. I don't mind, said the boy, as he took a sip of coffee. Of course I don't mind. Staring in the perplexity of this odd little man who had never been on a ship, but knew this one like the back of his hand. At the moment the man was opening and anxiously checking his curious leather satchel. Its contents seemed queer. as well as the boy could tell. From the glimpse he got, it was full of tapered rods and spikes of several different sizes, made of several different materials. At this time, they had to shout to each other above the noise of the winches and windlasses, the chugging and the donkey engine that supplied power in port when the main engines were shut down, and the pounding feet and yelling of the crewmen on the deck. So the little man left his luggage without unpacking, and he and the boy went back on deck, returning to the spot against the rail where they were out of the way of the workers. A passing seaman, his face shiny with sweat, stopped, looked at them, giggled, and exclaimed, "Que sombrero ridiculo! And marihuanaro." That's Spanish. You like my Spanish? The boy chided him. "Vaya, hombre, no tien que ver contigo." Both the sailor and the elderly gentleman blinked at him in surprise. The seaman mumbled, "Disculpe, joven tien razón," and went about his work. "He was making fun of your hat, sir," the boy exclaimed. "I told him to mind his own business, and he apologized." "Was he talking Portuguese?" "Spanish. Practically all the crew are Mexicans and Cubans. How come you to parley that language, lad?" "I was born in Mexico. I live there. I've just been going to school up here in Exeter. Down home, I only had a private tutor." "Well, I must say you learned our language mighty well." "Oh, I'm not really Mexican, except by citizenship. Our family came from Virginia originally, when the Confederacy lost the war between the states. Lots of Southern families moved to Mexico rather than live under, excuse me, sir, under the thumb of the Yankees." "No apologies, my boy. At least you didn't say damn Yankees. I'm a Yankee, right enough, and I well remember the war, but I was just a few months too young to be called up to fight against your people. And 40 years later, I certainly harbor no grudge." The ship's other 3 hatches were being battered down, and the derrick supports raised. Now the engines started slowly, making the iron deck throb under their feet. Hear the engine? That's what the engine sounds like. It's a strange sounding engine. All right, stop the engine. Okay, Grandpa, stop. Okay, all right. As the little man had put it, casting off the hawsers. Deckhands fore and aft were hauling them aboard, detaching their rat discs and coiling them neatly. The boy turned from watching this activity to see the white-haired gentleman holding his derby in his hands and looking at it somewhat ruefully. Ruefully? What a great word, ruefully. All right. And looking at it somewhat ruefully, and here I thought I ought to dress elegant for the cruise to the Caribbees. "On this old tub full of bedbugs and cockroaches," the boy laughed. "And you're going to find that surge soup pretty itchy, too, down in the tropics. You'll have to get properly outfitted when we land, sir. I'll lend you a hand with your shopping." "Be obliged to you, lad. But if you find this ship so repulsive, what are you doing on it?" "I got a hurry-up message to come home, and this was the first boat going anywhere near, not too near at that. Our destination is some port I can't even pronounce. Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus. Well, I hope I don't have to say that too many times. said the boy, pronouncing it quite easily. Way down south on the Gulf Coast. Some call it Puerto Mexico. I'll have to take a diligencia, a stagecoach, and then a train, several trains north from there to our hacienda. I didn't mean to make fun of this old Godspeed. It's just that when my mother and father sent me up here 2 years ago, they sent me in a first class on a luxury liner. They'd be mortified to see me traveling on a tramp. That's all. Coffee time. The elderly gentleman shrugged. I wasn't exactly taking up for the Godspeed myself. I think steam never should have replaced sail. Those were the great days. The clippers, beautiful as swans. I remember them well, but what takes you back to Mexico in such a hurry that you have to travel 5th class this time? My mother and father and grandfather all just died, the boy said, holding his face expressionless. I'm the only son, he added with obvious distaste. I've got to go back and huddle with a pack of coyotes. That's what we call lawyers down there. And sign papers and get a trustee appointed until I'm of age. And, just take charge of things. I'm not much looking forward to it at all. Your whole family died at once? Exclaimed the man in horror. My poor boy. What was it? A plague? An automobile. My father just had to be the first man in our part of Mexico to own one. And then, when he was giving Mom and Gramps their first ride, he had to see how fast he could go around one dangerous curve. And on the ranch road, he didn't make it. Crash. The gentleman plucked at the fringe of whiskers and regarded the boy with narrowed eyes. I have to say, you're taking it rather coolly. Was that I'd be dissolved in tears. Oh, that's a tear being dissolved. Okay. The boy gulped and blinked for a moment before replying. I guess when something bad happens, it's just too big to cry about. And that Exeter, when some of the kids got homesick, it was drummed into us, men don't cry. But I'm pretty sure I will when I get home. That's another reason I'm not too eager to get there. Still plucking at his fringe, the elderly man couldn't seem to think of any cheering up comment to make. Instead he said, Here we are, discussing these intimate subjects, and we haven't even introduced ourselves, lad. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. My name is Trey Clark. Holds out his hand to shake. That's just shaking hand. All right, shake hands. Here we go, shake hands. Okay. Trey? Like Trey of Diamonds? Was your father a gambler? Only once, Trey said wryly. Then he tried to take that curve. See, he gambled when he tried to take that curve that he crashed the car. Well, I'm Caleb Crabtree, said the little rotund man, adding with a trace of pride, master of the rope walk at Newton. You're a circus performer? Blurted Trey in astonishment, staring at the man's white hair and roly-poly figure. Mr. Crabtree looked slightly annoyed. I'm a master rope maker. A rope maker is where rope is manufactured. It's called that because it's a great long building, 1/4 of a mile long, and you, well, come on, Grandpa, and you do an almighty lot of walking up and down it. Oh, now I know why you know so much about ships. The ship they were on now was moving slowly sideways. You ever seen a ship move sideways? Well, this one was moving sideways. Well, here's the dock, and here's the ocean. So it has to move out like this, sideways, to get to the ocean. Okay. Aren't you glad I explained that? All right. Trey looked down on the street of shops, taverns, and idlers, and half wished there was some school acquaintance there to wave goodbye to. Let's wave goodbye to Trey. Bye, Trey. Bye, Trey. Have a nice trip. Enjoy your voyage. Bon voyage, Trey. Okay. He turned to Caleb Crabtree. Are you going to Mexico for a vacation, sir? Nay, lad. Never had a vacation day in my life. Matter of fact, I've never been out of the Bay State. Never been further west or south from Newton, or farther east than the old coast near Boston. Just like you, I got a hurry-up message to come down there and bring my tools of trade. Trey looked puzzled. It seems, said Mr. Crabtree, there's a rope somewhere in the Mexican state of Chiapas. A rope 4 miles long. It broke a few months back, and they badly needed to put it back in working order. Trey looked even more puzzled. What in the world would anyone be doing with a rope 4 miles long? I think I said 22 earlier, but it's actually 4. So it's 4 miles long. Okay. I'm glad we got that corrected. Trey looked even more puzzled. What in the world would anyone be doing? I read this already. Don't read it again. Okay, a rope 4 miles long. I have no idea. I gotta get the voices right. I have no idea. Caleb fished in his pocket and brought out a yellow sheet of telegraph paper. All right, here's a piece of paper in his hand. All right, neatly covered with strips of pasted-on message. Robert Lacode, projects at some place called Zimapan, Chiapas. Is that how you pronounce it? Shumapan, Chiapas, said Trey, glancing at the paper. But I don't know where it is. And Robert Lacone projects could be anything. But good night. There's plenty of other rope in Mexico. The Mexicans make it out of hemp, henequen, grass, maguey, and those plants that grow all over the country. Marijuana. What do they need you for? Because this is a wire rope, the roly-poly man said. The cablegram doesn't say so, but it would have to be to support that great length and not stretch and sag. If it were an ordinary hempen or flaxen rope, this Mr. Lacaude would certainly get any able seaman from any nearby port to come and splice it. But a wire rope requires a specialist like me. Such a rope, 4 miles long, will be worth about $3,000 plus transport. So it's cheaper for this Robert Lacode to pay my fee and ship fare than to import another rope. Boston had swung astern now and was rapidly receding. The harbor pilot in her wheelhouse, the SS Godspeed, was threading her way among other vessels, moving or anchored in the inner harbor. Her blunt bow, also called her belly, pointed for the outward channel into Massachusetts Bay, and 50-mile away hook of Cape Cod. How? Asked Trey, after some thought. Are you going to tie a broken wire rope together? Caleb Crabtree sighed patiently. I'd hate to have to try. I shall splice it, Trey. A rope that long must consist of several lengths spliced together, and doubtless one of the splices parted. I don't know what a splice is, or splicing, said Trey. Put very simply, it means untwisting two rope ends and weaving the strands back together, making them one rope. I'll have to demonstrate to you sometime. But let me tell you one thing, lad. Don't ever talk to a seaman or a boat maker about tying rope. Two ropes are not tied. They are best bent together in a knot. So from now on, we'll never tie a rope together. We'll bend them together in a knot. That knot is never tied. It is cast or made or put in a rope, and a knot is never untied. It is opened. A tangled rope is never untangled. It is cleared. The only time a sailor ever tries is when his ship ties up to a dock. Remember these things. There'll be a test on that, okay? Remember these things. All right, we never tie a knot. We bent two ropes together. Yes, sir, said Trey. Yes, sir, said Trey, a little dazed. Before he ventured to speak again, oh my goodness, my throat is... There we go. Before he ventured to speak again, the SS Godspeed had passed between Long Island to starboard and Deer Island to port and into the first waters of Massachusetts Bay. Here she hove to, lowered her ladder, and let the pilot down into his launch, then chugged ahead again across the bay. Trey finally said, I guess you must be pretty excited about making this voyage, Mr. Crabtree. He added, with a boyish lack of tact. Making rope all your life must be a dull business. Dull? Exclaimed Caleb Crabtree, sounding indignant to the point of insult. Well, I swan. One of the oldest and most honorable trades there is, and you call it dull? Look, see here, Trey. Rope making was invented before the wheel was. Men were making cord for bowstrings and rope for fishing nets back in the Stone Age, and long before they learned to spin and weave clothes for themselves, 'twas rope that hauled the stones to build the Tower of Babel and the pyramids of Egypt. You find ropes and knots mentioned all through the Bible, all through Shakespeare. This knot of life intrinsicate at once unite. Why, my lad, I could tell you things about rope that'll convince you 'tis one of the most fascinating subjects in all the world and all of history. And we're reading a book about rope, the most fascinating thing in all of history. Okay, we're up to chapter 2. So we're going to stop here, and we'll start chapter 2 on the next one. The Good Ship Godspeed. Okay. Let's see how I turn this off.